But someone will blow
It's
it up.
official Rotary time, starting a few minutes late, right? But everyone was visiting and having fun, so welcome everyone. I'd like to welcome visitors today. So we've got two people up from Florida, I believe. Can you, I'll try to move the camera, and if you can speak loudly and introduce yourself. Is front camera working yet? Not yet.
We can walk over that.
There it goes.
There you
Yeah,
go.
it's working.
There you go.
So, we have,
Hello,
so everyone on
Jan
Zoom?
Causey, Tarpon Springs, Florida.
Al Causey, Tarpon Springs, Florida.
So you say Sarah and Al?
Jan.
Oh, Jan and Al.
Al, yes.
So we have Jan and Al visiting from Florida. I think all the other Rotarians here look familiar to me, so welcome old timers. We have a visitor, I believe, on Zoom. Can you introduce yourself, or Doug, is he your guest? Can you introduce him?
Yeah, I have two guests. One is Garland Kennedy, and he is an outdoorsman and cyclist and a reporter for the Syca Sentinel, and he's been covering this story about the evolution of the Syca Homeless Coalition. And then my other guest is Fortunatus, also known as Stormy, who has deep roots in Sitka, and he's on the board of the Syca Homeless Coalition. So Stormy and Garland, welcome.
Welcome. Okay, we usually do introductions and then I ring the bell and we say the Pledge of Allegiance. So let's stand for the pledge. I'll wait till everyone's ready. Okay, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so some quick announcements. I'll mention it once or twice more, but I wrote on the whiteboard, sitkarotary.org. An objective this year is to have our next 3 to 6 to 7 meetings as we are scheduling them, outlined at sitkarotary.org. So I know everyone wants to attend every week, but our international RI president said this last year that each one of us should invite one. Are those his words? Each one invite one. So look at the upcoming speakers, think about your friends who might enjoy those presentations and who might be interested in joining the Rotary Club, and let them know they can either join via Zoom or join us here at room 106 at UAS. So yeah, sitkarotary.org. Another announcement I guess I'd like to make fairly quickly. We had a visioning meeting 3 or 4 months ago. Quite a few things came out of it. One was to start considering what we'll call duck days. Do we move the duck race to a day other than the 4th of July, where there's a lot of competition downstairs, and do different events, and there are people discussing that. Another thing was a big project committee, which has kind of been pulled together this last week. Dan is the committee chair. I think he's emailed and reached out to all of you. Actually, I'll ask Dan to say something about that in a minute, but the thing I wanted to mention that came up in visioning, and there were lots of great ideas, and I'm going to try to roll as many of them out as I can, as fast as I can, but 2 of the comments that were made were, do we really need to keep saying the Pledge of Allegiance? And the board talked about that in our June board meeting, and we decided that that was an important part of Rotary and that we should keep saying the Pledge of Allegiance. The other thing that came up that the board talked about in our June meeting and then again in our July meeting was some type of simple land acknowledgement. So I've got a simple land acknowledgement, and for our visitors, you know, and I'm new to Sitka, so all of you long-timers, forgive me if I misspeak in any way, but the local tribes were the Tlingit and the Haida who have lived in this area for 10,000 plus years. And so a simple land acknowledgement that I've seen and I've liked and that we'll try to work into our meetings more consistently is I acknowledge that I live, work, and learn on Tlingit and I. So it's just a respectful way for us to acknowledge the caretakers of this land for thousands and thousands of years and that we enjoy now. So that's been rolled out. Now, by way of announcements, Dan, if you could just take a minute and talk about the big project group.
Three things. Thank you, Lauren. You want me to run up there, or you gonna, oh, looky there.
I don't know how to zoom in and out though.
Oh, boo, I'll come up there. Oh no, wait, Sean's gonna make you score slide. There's Rich, so I'm just right over here. No? Oh, okay.
Overshot.
Okay, there you go, look at me. I'm even labeled.
So left to right, zoom in and out. Okay. I just learned something new.
Bad day when you don't. Okay, fellow Rotarians, ladies and gentlemen, guests, all you other folks. I actually have three hats that I'll talk about today. I am the foundation chair for this year. That means I'm responsible both for helping you to know what the foundation is about. This isn't going to be both because I got another one. Helping you to know to make your foundation donation sometime during this year as you can, and then guiding our work where we go to the Rotary Foundation for funding for international projects. So I don't have anything for you about that today, but we talk about every Rotarian every year, which is if you can, as you can, making a donation to the Rotary Foundation every year. And before that, we talked about the basics of how it works. Okay, that hat off. Now let's talk about major projects. This is a ad hoc, I think is the right word, committee of the club to make recommendations to the board about, because the duck race, which Al, by the way, had a ticket for a couple years ago, he's waiting for his check, earns us a lot of money, and we've been basically turning it over, because it has to go within the community, to other nonprofits. We'd like to also use it for Syca Rotary projects that will get us some recognition as well as big things of substance for the community. So I am the chair. We're going to have our first meeting this Wednesday. We have a list of ideas that Carrie Sagal had. We have an idea from Carl Stedman, and we'll produce some more. I thought we were chug towards making this recommendation to the board on the 14th of this month. I think that's the Monday. Turns out we're either heading towards September or December. But anyhow, we will get going. We will keep you informed about that. But also, if you have a project or projects that you think that our club should do this year, you can call me, text me, send me an email, tell somebody who might see me on the street, and we'll add that to a spreadsheet and work on recommendation for the board, which obviously gets them to look at our recommendation, do their own machinations, and make a decision. Thank you. We'll work on that for at least a couple weeks, if not a couple months, and get done someday, and we'll keep you informed. So, but get a hold of me if you have things. Third thing, a couple of years ago, during the pandemic, I committed the club with at least notice to Catherine, and maybe even your predecessor, I'm not sure, that the Rotary Club was asked, and we agreed to help the American Society of Civil Engineers Alaska Division in their action in Sitka. They're going to designate the O'Connell Bridge, as an Alaskan historic engineering project, I guess. Anyhow, it has some aspects. It was the first cable-stayed traffic or vehicle bridge built west of the Rockies, I think. Anyhow, Lauren has in front of him, no, on the table over here where Lauren was sitting, actually Sean will grab it, and we have a sign-up sheet. I told you a couple weeks ago we would be putting this plaque up for the ASCE. Their designation day, the celebration is on September 11th. So prior to that, we're gonna get the plaque installed near the bridge. I told you a couple weeks ago we would do it this coming weekend, 2 weekends from now, but I give you 2 chances to sign up. There's a sign-up sheet there. You can see that aside from saying that Saturday is the 14th, 13th, I knew it was more, it's a lucky day. From 1 to 4, nominally, we're going to do this work. I've got some very technical sign-up areas there. We need a concrete mason and a couple gardeners and an equipment operator. The equipment halfway up is another 2 shovels, so all of you qualify. So sign up if you can. We'll run that through next Tuesday also, and we'll be doing the first part of our project, which is getting the sign up for the bridge, and then we'll have a small role in the presentation that happens on September 11th. Did I drone on long enough? Everybody asleep, or are you with me still? I'm gonna sit down, thank you.
Good job. So, back to side camera, so, thanks, Dan. The one thing I might want to add is, again, kind of back to visioning that we did back in April. Visioning is to kind of put a 3 to 5 year plan in place for the club that we can gradually keep rolling forward. So I guess my hope was that the big project committee might not just identify something for this year, but maybe next year and the year after. Or it could be a rolling project where we do
3-year rolling average, okay.
yeah, so that's the direction we're gonna try to take the club is, provide that rolling consistency. In fact, on that topic, if you're interested in being the president-elect, let me know. We've got I'm sure it's only gonna be a short-term vacancy, but reach out to me if you think you might like to do it. We'll be needing to fill that sometime in the near future. So let's hurry and rush to the program. I hope, Doug, we're leaving you enough time, but everyone knows Doug. Doug's been instrumental in a lot of projects around town. Most recently, the homeless project that's going on. And just to refresh everyone's memory, the survey that I sent out last October, November, of the 19 current Rotarians that replied to that, 18 said they wanted us to be involved or do something to address homelessness. So, that's pretty unanimous for a Rotary club. That was kind of loud and clear, came back to me, and then of course in December, we jumped on board with a $5,000 match, which helped the Homeless Coalition earn a lot of money, raise a lot of money, and move forward. But Doug, turn the time over to you. I hope that was a little bit of a segue that helps you. Thanks.
That's great. Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Can you just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? All right. So we started with this question. Imagine a Syca where everyone has a warm, safe, dry place to live. And I am a support person with the Syca Homeless Coalition. Stormy's a board member here. And we get together every Friday and make plans with our full team, and then the board makes decisions. So what I'm going to do is a presentation with a lot of pictures, and then we're going to ask a few questions, and people will connect on those, and we'll have questions at the very end. So to start, we start all of our meetings by recognizing where we are on planet Earth. We're on Syca Ani. Ani is a Syca word for land, and we want to recognize the stewards of this place for 10,000 years, and also a great template for living in community, a community that's focused on cooperation and respect. So I'm going to do just a couple slides of context, some of the background and history, then I'll focus on when Rotary got really involved this fall. But homelessness is a long-standing problem in our community and our country. About 500,000 people go to bed every night without a place. In the past, 4 different community groups came together to establish a shelter, and none were successful. So this 5th Times a Charm group is the Syca Homeless Coalition. They are a nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit. And in 2018, they started the Laundry and Showers Project and started making some great connections with people that were chronically homeless. And in that time period, they also researched dozens. The number I heard was 50 potential buildings for a winter shelter, and none of them worked out. And so it became clear that a new approach would be needed. And so they looked at the cabins and came up with this very creative, innovative idea about working with the Alaskan Mental Health Trust and making these dry cabins. And this is another thing that they did in that time period was they worked with Agnew Beck. It's a consulting company. And so this is a report. This is from August 25th, 2020 is when it came out. And it did some planning and some research and gave a template for how this could look. And this is a picture of the initial vision. It's a shared building, and then the red squares would be individual units up on Jarvis Street, which is a 17-acre parcel of Alaska mental health land. But the beauty of it is you can see where Halley Street and Jarvis Street comes. It said it's accessible on the road, and it's pretty close to downtown, so a great location. There's a Raven radio story that in just 5.5 minutes really explains why this is so important and sort of talks about this 5th group and that vision. On the left, you'll see a picture of Hannah Green, and she is a volunteer for years. And then on my right, it's holding the pepper spray is Gail Young. She was the former president for the Homeless Coalition, a real champion and driver. And in the middle is Kathy. And Kathy's one of our neighbors, and she talks in the radio story about the experience of becoming homeless in Sitka. And she talks about how much having a place like this would have meant to her. And one thing that was interesting, and one theme, is that sometimes when someone ends up sick in a car or they're in an insecure housing situation, it's not one or two things, it's sort of a perfect storm of bad luck that hits at once, and then they find themselves in this really hard position. What's going to be great is that in years to come, we'll have a place. So in September, the 13th annual Health Summit Planning Day happened. 40 people came together, and we asked them this question: what health initiative deserves Syca's attention in this next year? Hundreds of ideas to start. The group got down to 16, got down to 4, and then 2. One of the ideas was a community rec initiative, which has taken off. And then the other idea was this: end homelessness here in Sitka. So end homelessness and build that cabin neighborhood on the top of Jarvis Street. So this is the community goal. This was 40 people coming together and say, yes, this is a top priority. So it's called the planning day, but it's really a goal setting day. And the first step is setting a goal. And the next step for us is to bring people together. This is from October. This was the Kickoff Gathering, as we called it, under the shelter. We were in high COVID mode. We had 50 people come out on a cold October night. And in the setting, you'll see somebody with a guitar, and then there's Pastor Jojo on one side, and then Rachel Marino's on the other. She's one of the community leaders who was a speaker. And the thing that I remember, I think many people do, is as she talked and appreciated people jumping into this work, she said, there was no word for homeless in Khangat. The thought that we would allow another human being, one of our neighbors, to be in these sort of situations is not a traditional concept. And I think that was inspiring and important for us to remember why we're doing this. So in the story, the Raven Radio story, they have the CEO for the Alaskan Mental Health Trust, and he says, yes, this could be a great partnership. There's a few things we need to see in order to pursue this and to give that parcel of land at a very favorable rate. It should be like $1 or maybe even $2 a year, that type of thing. He says, one, we need to see community support from Syca. 2, we need to see a solid business plan that shows how this can work long term, so including the financial piece. 3 is we need to see money. We're talking about buildings, so they need to see money. And so what we said is we need some kind of momentum building success. One success leads to the next, leads to the next. So what we came up with was getting some basic organization, getting a website, and doing this thing called the Shelter Sitka fundraiser. This is where Rotary jumped in after the Health Summit. So this picture right here, this is near the site at the top of Jarvis Street. This was in November. You'll see one Rotarian there, Dan Edling, and then Stormy's next to him. Kathy Gallinera is a nurse at the Pioneer Home. She's the current co-chair along with Jade Nodes, who's with Syca Tribe, Alaska. Gail Young, the previous president, and then on the other side, Jessica from the Health Summit, giving a $2,000 check. So we had this $2,000 come in and said, could we, in about a month, before the end of the year, raise $20,000? Didn't know, just putting out what we thought was an ambitious goal. The Rotary came in with a match and with ideas and with individuals contributing. And you can see here, this was one of the posters. It said for 2 weeks only, the Rotary is going to match up to $5,000. Well, it didn't take 2 weeks. It took a couple days. Take a look at these Rotarians. Cindy's handing off the check to Savannah here. Cindy also, in her business, Wayfinder Wealth, put in $1,000 as well. So we had a lot of Rotarians individually contribute, and then we as a club contributed, and this is made possible with the duck fathering back. So a lot of this presentation, if you take one thing away, one thing is how much your and the Rotary and our club support has meant. I'm with the team every Friday, being able to share these things. You need support for a project like this, and it's really meant a lot. So thanks to, you see Sharon and Karen here, John and Cindy, everybody who contributed. Dan Jones, who's volunteered 100 hours of his time. But we reached that goal really quickly. We went over 20,000. This was in mid-December. We were almost at 40. We surpassed that. We made it 60. We surpassed that. Money just kept coming, from as little as $5 cash to an anonymous donation of $1,000. By the time we took this picture in January 2021, we had far exceeded our goal. These were all people that came out on a very icy surface, what turned out to be a front page picture to say thank you and to celebrate this momentum building success. In fact, take a guess how much you think that we had raised with this campaign. Just take a mental note. This is how much it was. $114,000. Your neighbors, organizations, groups, give them what they could. And that was so important to have that in the beginning, because then when you have money, you can make money. You can do things like hire the grant writers. Here's Aurora and Lenise. And then they can write the grant. And they wrote a successful grant that brought in $50,000 from the Alaska Community Foundation. And then you can put money into hiring locals, like Over's Construction, who's a general contractor for this. He's hired out a bunch of work for this project. And then importantly, the Rotary contribution was looking at that business plan. And this is where we got extremely lucky. The picture you see is of Lenise Henderson. She's the owner-operator of the professional development company. Tons of experience in Alaska. She helps businesses to get started, has written maybe hundreds of business plans, and is a good stroke of luck, lives here in Sitka, and has a passion for this, and says, yeah, I'll take that on. And she's completed an operating plan that's first rate. So Lenise has essentially become like the project administrator. You can see this early organizational chart. Lenise's job was really do the next big thing. And between Lenise and I did a little facilitation, trying to help the group and the board. Big decisions for board, that was the board members. But an early decision, what have we been doing for months? Making decisions. So this was one. Do we want to keep that model of dry cabins, or do we want to bring in water and have them be units that you could have a bathroom and a sink? The group decided to go with the HUD vouchers. A lot of the inspiration came from this place. If you can see that picture, that's a nice looking facility. opened in June of 2017, 32 units using the housing first concept that we are. And Juneau's been great. They've been giving ideas, giving inspirations. One of the reasons we went with HUD is that they did that, and that's about a third of their operating expenses. And so having Juneau be so generous with their time, we had a few weeks ago, we had a meeting that Stormy and I, we should get 10 to 20 people, and they had people from Juneau there helping us with policies, procedures, and bidding. So they've been not just a source of inspiration, not just showing us it could be done in Southeast, but giving us real tangible ideas. So part of how the decision was made of what's worked in Southeast, part was what's worked in the US. We know the Housing First program is a best practice. We know our approach will work. These are evidence-based rated outcomes. And that one of the third one I want to highlight, reducing hospital utilizations. When they did a study in Juneau, when they opened this place, they saw that ER admissions went down. This is important. Every community that has homelessness is going to pay in one way or another. We can build facilities like that, or we can pay in a much, much more dehumanizing way. I think we need to build a place, get these benefits. So, we looked at what works. We also looked at what the group wanted. This was from a visioning session with 4Acre. 4Acre is a nonprofit that helps nonprofits, helped us with a vision, and then these core values: humanity, hope, dignity, caring, safety, community, humility, acceptance and non-judgment, simplicity and stewardship. On the right side of the screen, you'll see an artistic sort of rendering of one of these places, and it's simple. However, it's also effective. It's a place where you can go and you can be warm, dry, and safe. That's three big things: warm, dry, and safe. You'll have that. So it's not a huge footprint, it's not a huge place, but it's enough. Simplicity. So throughout this, there's a board, the Syca Homeless Coalition board, that's making big decisions, and we have this full team, the Syca Homeless Coalition support team, which I'm in, was making sort of smaller decisions and organizing subgroups and trying to get the big ones to the board, make other decisions. But this is what we use, this modified consensus version, and it's amazing. The group just has met every Friday through holidays, through the summer, a lot of energy. So one of the other things we've been doing is making goals. In the first week of May, we made 7 goals to achieve by the end of June. This is just a couple of them. One was to spend on that $50,000 in ARPA grant in a wise way and in a timely way, and this is something that Dan Jones helped us with. And I'm very pleased to say that goal was met. This is a picture from yesterday at the Jarvis Street site, and our general contractor said the site's 10% complete. It's really starting to take shape. The grant covered the engineering stamps for the grading, the voltage plan, the drainage plan. So this was a huge thing. This was the biggest grant that the Homeless Coalition's got, and it really helped to get this site in shape. And we were able to work on that site because of the relationship that was built with the owner. The owner is the Alaskan Mental Health Trust, and their charge is to use the lands to help the beneficiaries. And so Gail and the original group, their vision was, well, we can help beneficiaries if we do this housing. And so Lanice, as our project administrator, has made a great relationship with Alaskan Mental Health Trust. They came in June, and so it was a board president who is Jade Notes, who works with social services at the Syca tribe. It is Justin, the general contractor, it's Lanice, the project administrator, a really strong team, going to the site, and then David said, yeah, you can do this work, and giving that approval. And so that's huge. So setting and achieving goals. Another big goal was to have a Hunget name. And so really the ringer we've had in all of this is Syca Tribe Alaska. Their social service department has supported and helped in so many ways. In fact, the biggest contribution right off the bat was from STA. But Melanie Board, who's director, worked with elders and tree leaders and folks to not just come up with a name. It's HIT and then XI, so it sounds like Hiksani. Hiksani. But there's a Facebook and it has how to pronounce it. The HIT would just be like HIT in English. It's that XI. And then the Sani, to me, is like it's just sort of elongating the A. But Please do not take my very basic pronunciation. You can check that out. And there's a little thing where you can play. It's called Peksani, which is little houses. That's what we're making, 12 little houses. Big thank you to Vince, AC Lakeside. This is in really April. They did a barbecue fundraiser, and it's been neat that we've sort of got support from all these different groups, but fellow Rotarian Vince, he is, and there's the big ceremony in Czech. I think it was one of their biggest barbecue fundraisers, and it's just a chance to educate. We gave out these brochures to a lot of people. They kind of told the story and made connections and made some money that we need. I couldn't, looking back at emails and talking to groups, I could not, if I was to try to capture every positive development that's been just in the last 8 or 9 months, it would take many, many slides. But here's just a few of the things. Successes with permitting, a fantastic design, one that we took around to the folks who may live there and said, what do you think? And got a lot of thumbs up. Adding board members. Storm is one of them. Another board member is a social worker at the hospital, somebody with substance abuse. So increasing the board, we're still looking for more permitting. That relationship with Alaskan Mental Health Trust to get the land prep, lots been done. Surveying, creating policies and procedures. Julia Smith, who's a former administrator of the Syca Pioneers Home, is leading up that to have the policies and procedures he's admitting. And then getting a financial sponsor, Spruce Root, Lane and Peterson. So that's who administers the ARPA grant. So this is one of the things that's been seen at many of our Friday meetings. Success by the yard is hard, but by the inch, it's a cinch. So what's the next few inches? Well, we had kind of a major breakthrough. We're hiring the first full-time worker for the Syca Homeless Coalition, an executive director, coming down in September. Very energetic, very bright young man. We're all very excited. Our next step is to onboard him well, to come up with the support. So we're going to find a place, we need to find how to make this a win-win, how to give him what he needs, everything from business cards to who to talk to, so that he can hit the ground running and keep this going forward. So that's a big next step. We got to onboard this well. Another one is our donor recognition program. Started this summer, and individuals or groups, we do a contribution of $12,000, have their name on the donation appreciation plaques that'll be at the site and appreciated in other ways. Here's some of them that came in. You'll see at the top of the list. Syca Rotary Club. We've done, just from the club, we've done 15,000 in this last 9 months. White Elephant, Syca Tribe, there's several others that are being pursued, but that's something we're trying to get all 12 of them sponsored. So we need to get some either philanthropists or some organizations to see how we want to support that. The Board of Trustees, we need to meet with them and have them have a favorable long-term lease so that we can build. So that's coming up, that's the next step. And then the one that's coming up most immediately is Friday. This is this Friday morning, our president's gonna be there. It's the Syca Homeless Coalition Sleep Out. And it's on Friday, 5 o'clock. At 6, there's kind of a community gathering. This is something that's happens in different parts. In fact, the biggest, I think, sleep out is to be in solidarity and support, and sometimes to raise funds to help end homelessness. This was one in December 2019, over 60,000 people sleeping out to raise awareness, to bring visibility to an issue that sometimes is not. So there's lots of ways that you can support. You can support online. In the flyer, there's like a little QR code. You can take your phone. Actually, I might put it in case anybody wants to try this. You can take your phone, hover it over that, and it'll take you to a link where you can make a small donation in honor of one of the people sleeping around. I think there's maybe 15. You can go to the website, which is sheltersyca.org also, or you can just come to the event, drop a couple bucks into the hat. Lots of ways that you can support. We do need this fundraiser, especially with staff coming on board and all the building costs. You could be a sleeper and raise money from your friends and family, not too late for that. The one thing I want to invite everybody to come to, though, is at least the rally. I mentioned Lauren's going to be there, and it's going to be kind of that Rotary check and support. And Lauren's going to say a few remarks about why the club supports and how we have and why I appreciate this work. You can help us spread the word. It's going to be a time to kind of re-energize. And at the bottom, we are hoping to bring in some new board members. It can be an 11-person board, so we're looking for 3 people. And if you know somebody who wants to serve the community, wants to be with a really great functioning team that is in a very exciting phase, have them think about joining. And have them join Stormy and Jade and Kathy and help that board to be stronger. And then if you want to join the support team, we meet every Friday, and that's people taking on different tasks. Like somebody took on the task of I'll make the brochure. Somebody took on the task of the events. And that's of interest. We meet on Fridays, and you can sign up at the event. So this is what we're looking at, folks. 12 units. A residential unit for a live-in manager, somebody who's there and can help connect people to services and just make sure that things are running smoothly for everybody. And then this is the really exciting feature for me, the community room. So let's say all 12 of the cabins had somebody in there. That community room can be converted quickly to take overflow, so they're not turning people away. The goal is to end homelessness, and this group has a plan. Now, the best email ever, I'll save that for Friday, but we had some exciting news, so if you want to hear that, come on Friday. But just to conclude, this is our shot. I mentioned 4 groups before that made a run at this. This is the 5th group. And it's come a long way in a short amount of time. And so I sharing a lot of the success and a lot of the progress, but my hope isn't that people say, well, they got it. My hope is that people say, this is our shot, and they double down, and they contribute, and they help, and they support. Because local support leads to support coming from out of town. We really can build this and have people living in warm, dry, safe places, and we really will be able to walk around our town with the best insurance policy ever. And that's that we live in a place where people know about their neighbors, they lend a hand to their neighbors, they care about their neighbors. Every small town would probably like to say that. But how many can say, yeah, we put our heads together, we put our hands together, we put our hearts together, and we figured out a way to end homelessness in our town? It does not exist. That's what we're on the verge of. That's your invitation. That's what you can be a part of. And I promise you, we're going to have this someday, and everybody's going to drive by Darby Street. And some people are going to shrug, some people aren't going to know, but some people are going to say, yeah, I was a part of building that community asset that's going to be here for decades. That's our invitation, that's our chance. All right, that's the presentation. We're going to do something to process all of this. Here's 4 questions. For the people in room 106, I'm going to ask you in a moment to turn your mute on, turn to the person next to you, talk about whatever you want, but here's a few questions. What did you see and what stood out from the presentation? Why was that important? What do you see as the importance of this work for our community? How does this fit into Rotary's 4-way test? What do you see as the next best steps? We're going to talk for a few minutes, and then all the people on Zoom, I'm going to invite you to answer and put those questions in the chat. We'll come back for questions and answers in 5 minutes. So talk with your partner for a few minutes, listen for a few minutes, and then we'll come back for some wrap-up questions. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Doug, for the presentation. Thanks, everyone, for all that you've done. And I think we've lost you, but I'm going to ding the bell and call it a meeting. Thank you. Thank you.